Hello there. My name is Cheryl Wiens, and I'm one of the directors of Strong Towns Langley. Our goal as an organization is to bring local residents together to learn, discuss, and advocate for a more people-oriented, resilient, and fiscally responsible Langley. That includes both the township and the city. And we do this through regular meetups, projects, and local initiatives. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Councillor Leith White, who's here with me. Welcome, Councillor.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be here.
Great to have you. And before we dive in, I'd just like to give the folks watching a quick introduction. Councillor White is currently serving his first term on Langley City Council. He was elected in 2022. Prior to that, and for more than 2 decades, he served as pastor of the Langley Vineyard in downtown Langley City, where he worked closely with many of the city's most vulnerable residents. Strong Towns Langley wanted to chat with Councillor White after he got our attention with this reel he posted on social media.
Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the morning last. Just kicking down.
So, Councillor White, let's start there. Can you tell us a bit more about the 30 is the new 50 motion you brought forward to Council?
Absolutely, Cheryl. It's obviously a play on 50 being the new 30 because of lifestyle changes that we all make about our health and living. And those that have enhanced the quality of our life so much that 50 years of age now becomes the new 30. So 30 is the new 50 initiative is really about the same kind of benefit that we can enjoy as a community by adapting, by lowering speed limits on our local streets. And in doing so, we can make them safer, more livable, more walkable. It's reimagining like one can do for your own life and prioritizing what's best for our health. But in this case, it's for the local neighborhood streets. Our communities are more populated and dense, and there's more living that happens adjacent to them. And so we have to change how we view them, not just as corridors for cars, but really as shared spaces that they are.
That sounds great to me. And as somebody who just recently turned 40, I think that means I'm 20.
Take it for what you can. That's what I think we have to do.
Yeah. So you might have gotten a little bit into this in your answer, but was your intent to lower speed limits citywide, or is it just in certain places?
Yeah, that's a great question. My primary focus is on local city streets, so not necessarily arterial roadways. Our local streets are primarily where families live, kids play, seniors walk, people are crossing, cyclists commute. They're the heart within our neighborhoods, and they deserve to be safe and welcoming. As housing and density increases, we have to adapt to those changes within our community. So, yeah.
That makes sense to us. And so you mentioned in your post, and again, I think during the council meeting that I watched a couple weeks ago, that there are real benefits to slowing down. And you did mention walkability already, but could you expand on some of those benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, first and foremost, I think slowing down save lives. Plain and simple. 30 kilometers an hour, a pedestrian has a 90% chance of surviving a collision. At 50 kilometers, that drops dramatically to about 15%. So that's the biggest thing is really we're trying to make our streets safer and increase that chance of survivability for individuals involved in an accident. But it's not just about safety. I mean, lower speeds make our streets quieter. They're more walkable. They're more inviting to be on and to live on. They encourage active transportation. They reduce emissions. They just help build stronger, more connected neighborhoods. It's a small change with a big impact, actually.
Yeah, that sounds great. We love more walkability and certainly sustainability and lower emissions. Um, so I believe in your presentation to council, you may have referenced other communities that have already made the decision to lower speed limits. Can you share an example of where this has been implemented?
Yeah, uh, there are several BC cities that are leading the way in reducing speed limits. Vancouver, obviously, they recently approved a 30-kilometer limit on all local streets, with signage that is rolling out across, I think, 25 communities. So that's quite an aggressive kind of initiative that they've started there. And they've already seen quite a drop in pedestrian fatality rates from 80% to, like I said, around 15-20%. Um, Victoria would be another one. They implemented a 30-kilometer zone in most neighborhoods. The city staff there report that they've seen, again, improved safety and livability, and the initiative is on track to be completed, I think sometime in 2027. So, really across BC, there's about 60 municipalities that have or are in the process of adopting the 30-kilometer zone. And the BC Center for Disease Control confirms that this kind of public support highlights the policy changes that they made in 2022 that makes this kind of implementation easier by just simply removing the signage barriers and forming that new policy around that. So lowering lowering speed limits, it's safer and it's achievable. It's low cost and it's easy to implement with really a high value return. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess these benefits and then examples like Vancouver and Victoria, do you think these are good points to make when talking with people that maybe don't want to slow down? Or how do you respond to those folks?
Well, yeah, at first I always try to put myself in somebody else's shoes, and so start with a little bit of empathy that way. And then change is hard. We are very ingrained in our culture and our society regarding the rights of vehicles and being on the road, and all that makes great sense. That's all very safety oriented. And change, I think, ultimately is a hard thing for people to walk through. And people worry about the inconvenience of getting from one place, in time for what they need. And so I think there's a lot of adapting and some natural adapting that needs to take place. Um, when you're confronted with the data behind collision in our neighborhood, um, they're increasing in terms of the transportation and activity around them. Mm, Lowering the speed limits is the single biggest initiative that we can do that helps bring safety to the roadways and the associated areas and just within our neighborhoods. And so, in that aspect, I think when people see that and they understand that and the impact that it makes, it's literally, I think, a no brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine it benefits the safety of motorists as well, not just pedestrians and other active transportation users.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the cost of convenience? Because people, I think, are concerned about how will this impact me?
Right.
Yes, they understand there's an impact on the community, but how will this impact me? And I think that's a fair question to ask. Is saving 30 seconds worth risking a life or a minute that it's going to take to get from one place to another? I also point to the growing public support that's out there. Uh, People are getting on board with this. They want to see the best for their communities, for their streets. This isn't just about necessarily a policy. It's people wanting to be people centered in their community. And when folks see the benefits of that firsthand, minds begin to shift. So I think that's kind of where we begin to see some further adoption of these kind of initiatives.
Well, that's great if minds are shifting on that. So can you walk us through what happened when your motion went to council? I believe it was the October 20th meeting, if I'm not incorrect, in case anybody wants to look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. They can look it up on our website. It's there. I think some felt my motion was premature. Um, we have currently, and staff has been working on a 2050 transportation plan for some time. And within the plan as it stands right now, it's still in draft form, but it's open to exploring speed reductions within our community. So that's positive. Ironically, I think it's funny, I'm trying to speed up that process of slowing things down because people's safety really depends on it. Uh, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, Langley City is growing so rapidly. And we're seeing an increased density in our neighborhoods and a rise in active transportation. And that's exactly why we need to prioritize local safety and livability now and not necessarily later. I was doing some door knocking in the community this summer, and this is really where it came home to me. Whereas I'm walking down the streets, knocking on doors, the speed at which vehicles were traveling, the noise that came, watching schools get out and kids crossing roads and, things like that. People walking simply to the park. It really accentuated this. So, um, while there are general references in the city's current draft of the 2050 transportation plan to examine reduced speed limits, the full plan is still pending council's approval before the year end. And I suspect that, not suspect, I fully support the transportation master plan. It's a big, comprehensive document with lots of goals set out over the next 25 years. But this is a small change that we can do now that's getting ahead of the curve. I think council was wanting to be a little more reserved and waiting to see what the outcome was of the transportation plan, allow staff to complete some things and not get too far ahead of the curve. But again, my focus is we know it's right. We know it saves lives. We know it's good for our community. My concern is, honestly, with a big document that comes forward with all these things, it gets a little lost in the shuffle of a host of other priorities. And I think what we need to do is, and my intention behind it is just moving it up in terms of the priority list. It saves lives, it's low cost, it's high return within terms of benefit to our community, and it's so easy to implement. It's backed by data, great policy, people support it. So why not do it and put it in the forefront? And that was really the intention behind it. Council has endorsed it, the idea behind it, but they are saying, let's wait until we see the full transportation plan come out, and then we'll know more how to proceed from there.
Well, here's hoping that once the plan comes out, that your motion will come back and be approved. Certainly, Strong Towns Langley would support that, and we're happy to join in efforts to advocate for safer and slower streets in our communities.
Awesome. I agree. Thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you so much again for joining us and for taking the time to share your insights about why we need to slow down.
Absolutely. Glad to do it. You
Yeah.
take care.
You too.
Thank you.